Hi everyone. So I read 4 books last week. So the first one I read was called Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. Now this one here, I gave it 4 stars. I decided to also add in my rating like a spice rating, like how spicy the book was. So that way, you know whether something's a little more light on the spice, or if you want something that's really spicy. So I have the characters of Cora and Dean. So you have content warning for sexual assault, attempted suicide, kidnapping. This is a dark romance. This is definitely a dark romance. So I give the spice rating of like 3 chili peppers out of 5. It had a good amount of spice, but there were scenes in it that are not going to be to people's liking. Especially the first like 20% of the book. Not something that a lot of people are going to want to read. That's the really dark part. So we have Cora and Dean have had a very antagonistic relationship for about 15 years. They've really not liked each other. And, they play pranks on each other, which I thought was very immature, because it's like, you've guys been playing pranks on each other for 15 years now? When are you going to, like, stop playing games with each other? It's very obvious that one of you at least likes the other one. It's very obvious, And it's, like, very cliche to say, like, oh, and it's also bad advice to say, well, if a guy picks on you, he likes you. Men should not be picking on women because they like them. Get the balls to tell a woman that you like her, that you want to date her, even when you're a teenager. Grow the fuck up and man up and tell her that you like her. If she says no, she's not interested, move on. So I've heard that advice growing up, like, oh, well, if a man, picks on you, things like that, it's because he likes you. And this is what I've suspected happened when I was younger, that there were some boys that obviously liked me, but they were too dumb, or whatever it is, too scared, dumb, whatever have you, to admit that they liked me. So, I've had that. So this one here is one night she gets, drunk. And so she was going to call a cab or an Uber or something like that. And she can't find her wallet because it was taken at the bar. So meanwhile, Dean and her sister, because he's engaged to her sister, he decides to come back because she's like, hey, can you pick me up? And he's like, why didn't you just come home with us before? And she's like, because I don't have my wallet. So they're kind of like arguing a little bit in the car. This car basically stops them. Like the bright lights are on. And so sometimes, that's hard for you to kind of like drive if these bright lights are in your, are in your rear view mirrors and all that stuff. So they stop the car and they're kind of arguing with each other. And meanwhile, this person comes up to the door, breaks open her window, her passenger side window, and proceeds to try to pull her out of the car. So they are trying to, like, do what they can. They get knocked out, and then they end up waking up in a basement, and they're chained in this basement. What proceeds to happen for the next 20% is not pretty. Sexual assault. This guy is a disgusting person. The guy who kidnapped them is a disgusting, sadistic person. And he gets them to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Like when there is desperate times, you do desperate things in order to survive. And so they do some stuff that, they didn't want to do. And so it's basically the rest of the book after 20%. The rest of the book is basically them, you know, trying to get over their trauma. And there are some, I can understand the people who've never had that trauma. I can understand where they're like, you know, you kind of need to get over it. But you can't, when you have a trauma, everybody's going to be different on how they heal, you know, how they get over that trauma. Some people never get over trauma, you know, some people never, ever, ever get over a trauma that happened to them. Some people can bounce back quickly, others cannot. And so her sister, I felt like, was a bit unreasonable. I understood where she was coming from, but I felt also like, girl, you know, you never had anything like this happen to you. This trauma that happened to him clearly was something that, you know, put him in a different headspace. You know, Dean was just, he wasn't the same after him and Cora, you know, were in this, you know, we're in this situation, you know. And so Cora and Dean ended up developing this bond with each other, and they would, you know, kind of basically want to hang out with each other and, you know, sleep next to each other because they felt comfort with each other. And so it was just a lot of trauma, them trying to heal from this trauma, and meanwhile they start falling for each other. And so of course there's, you know, the situation where he's still engaged to her sister. So it's kind of like that whole thing. And so it was, I liked it. It was good. I did give it a 4, but there were, you know, it's a lot of darkness at the beginning. And then basically them trying to find the light toward the end of the book of them having some type of normal, healthy relationship, you know. And so it was a hard read. It's definitely a hard read for some. I was able to get through it, and it was good, but yeah, there was definitely some stuff in it that was it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody, because there is some stuff in there that's some triggering things in there for sure. But it was good. I did feel like Cora kind of frustrated me a bit, but I still enjoyed the book. But yeah, it's not for everybody. I'll just say that. The next book I went and read was by Claire Kent. We have Hold. So it says at the beginning here, it says, find the strongest man there. So I gave this one a 4. So we got the characters of Raina and Kane. So I gave the spice rating of a 4 chili peppers out of 5. It was good spice to this. From the synopsis, you know, Raina, she ends up, they're not on Earth, they're like on some other type of planet. She ends up in this prison. And basically what she has to do is she's going to find the strongest guy there who's going to protect her. And in exchange for him protecting her, she has to, you know, obviously perform sexual favors for him. And so she sees this guy across the way, and she wants him, like, to protect her, because he seems like he, you know, is going to protect her. That he'd be good at protecting her. And so she's kind of like getting a little attacked a little bit. And so he ends up coming up and he beats up the one guy and he takes her into his cell. Now, luckily for them, his cell, he can, you know, lock it. You know, no one can get in. He has the key. So that helps protect her. And luckily for her, he's not a scumbag where he's going to abuse her. You know, he obviously wants sex from her, and she performs that sex. And so it's basically them living in this cell, him protecting her, her performing sex acts, and they start to grow a bond with each other and start to have feelings for each other. And so it was basically that story. And so it is, the prison is underwater. So that's what makes it kind of like hard to escape too. But he, every day, I guess, finds different parts and stuff like that that are in the prison. And he's trying to basically find a way out of this prison. And so it's basically them forming this bond with each other and this connection. And it was basically all about that, them being in this prison. And, you know, he'd go for exercising and he'd take her with him and, you know, all that stuff. And he'd protect her. And it was basically like, you know, anybody got near her, he would mess them up, you know. So I did enjoy this book. He could have, like I said, he could have treated her badly, but she got lucky, you know, to where he didn't, you know. So yeah, I did like the fact that they kind of like, even though they had to, you know, they went and got intimate very quickly, he was gentle with her. And, you know, they obviously had this kind of like instant chemistry between each other. And it grew from, you know, the more time they spent with one another. But I did like this one. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not sure if I'm going to read the second one because I don't think I really care about the second one because it had a character from this first book that he's going to be in the second book. But I don't think I really care. I think I'd rather go into the third book, which I will do eventually. Because that one there is like, got kind of like cavemen or something like that. That sounded a little more interesting to me than the second book. So I think I'm going to skip the second book and go into the third book. But this one here was actually pretty good. I did enjoy this one. So then the next one I ended up reading is When She Belongs by Ruby Dixon. Now this one here is Rizdaverse number 4. So this one here, we have the characters of Jarek and Sophie. Now I gave this one a 4. But this one is definitely a slow burn romance. So I give the spice rating of 4 out of 5. I said it's slow burn, but once it gets going, it's hot, you know, so yeah. So we've got the character of Jarek. He'd been going, he went through war. So it really kind of like messed him up, like, you know, PTSD, has nightmares and stuff like that. Also, it messed him up like physically to where he has prosthetics, things like that. He's scarred. He has scars. He has prosthetics, things like that. So he's living on this basically, I guess you'd say like an asteroid. I think it was an asteroid. Living on this asteroid in this like space station kind of thing. And he's like a junker where he collects like all this different stuff, parts and everything like that. And people come to him when they want to junk some things, and then they also want to buy some things. So he's kind of like, you know, he goes and he does a lot of stuff where he finds this stuff that he could sell and all these different things. So he's definitely more of a hermit, likes to keep to himself, does not like to have a lot of people around him. So Sophie has been living on this ship with these big blue aliens for months. They're all kind of like brothers, and they kind of treat her like a sister. And she escaped from being a slave to these other aliens, and so they're kind of like helping to kind of take care of her and, you know, make sure she's, you know, in a safe place. So these brothers are all kind of like, you know, kind of treating her like sisterly and everything. So they decide they've got this like score, because they're like basically pirates, you know, space pirates. And so they got this score that looks really promising to them. So they decide they're going to go and leave her on the space station with Jarek and say, hey, could you watch her, you know, keep an eye on her, protect her until we come back. And so Jarek's pretty much like, no. He's like, no, I don't want a human, you know, with me. And he's basically a big blue alien too. And so he finally, like, he reluctantly agrees, like, fine, you know, she could stay, but I don't want her bugging me, kind of thing. And so it's basically their story. You know, she just basically wants to belong in a place where she's not going to feel like she's a burden. She wants to feel safe in a safe environment, because she was not treated well for many years. She was treated like a freaking pet, and it's like, that is so demeaning, to be treated like a freaking animal, and it's like, I'd want to kill some aliens too, where I'm like, you treat me like I'm a freaking pet, pat my head and give me some scraps. Oh, wait till I get a freaking weapon. So yeah, it was definitely a slow burn romance. It took a while for it to kind of like build up to where, he started getting attracted to her and she was attracted to him, because she first thought he was a jerk. And she would call him Jerk, and he's like, my name's Jarek, not Jerk. So it was funny. It was funny because, she'd call him a jerk, and he doesn't know like all the human like sayings that we have on Earth and all that stuff. So it was cute. I'd say the only thing that irritated me with this one was the fact that both of the characters didn't want to tell the other that they had feelings for each other. So it was just basically kind of like back and forth, like, oh, I don't want to tell her that I like her, that I'm attracted to her. And then she's like, oh, I'm afraid he doesn't like me. And I'm just like, well, you stop it with each other, Just admit you like each other. Just admit it. If the other one doesn't like you, it's okay. Get over it, Yeah, they were just both afraid of like abandonment. So, he was afraid like if he confessed his feelings to her and she went and moved on, he'd be heartbroken. I will say, out of this series, there is a bounty hunter that's a female, and she is funny. She is so funny, because she's like, basically saying like, hey, did you guys like have sex yet, kind of thing. It was funny. She is funny. And so she ended up kidnapping, the bounty hunter ended up kidnapping this other bounty hunter, and basically like, hey, I want him, I'm going to take him, kind of thing. And I'm just like, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I will say that that's funny. It's funny. I'm like, okay, girl, do your thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he's going to be too happy, when he finds out that, well, the reason why you kidnapped him is because you like him, I don't think he's going to like you back that way. It don't really work like that. So, I thought it was good. I did enjoy it. And so the last one I've read so far is, I gave this one a 3.5. It was decent. It could have been better. I'll just say that. So this one here is Josie Kerr, Holiday on Hemlock. I think it's Hemlock Mountain. So this one here is a novella. And so we have the characters of Wilhelmina, she calls herself Billy, and Barrett. So I give the spice rating of like a 3 chili peppers out of 5. And so I said this is a holiday, older woman, younger man novella. So Billy is 50. She lives in this small town where pretty much everyone knows your business. And she's been married 4 times. 4 times. And unfortunately, none of her marriages worked out. She was married to all older men. So if some men out there who are older and they think that they can get something younger, then they're going to divorce the older one, and get with a younger one, get with the younger model. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case. So with some men, especially if you have money. Yeah. So, she's 50 now, and we have the character of Barrett, and he's 28, and he's been like, kind of like, hot for her for like, a while. And so he would flirt with her, she'd flirt back, but nothing would ever kind of like come to it. Until finally one night she kind of takes him up on his offer, and they, get intimate, and a snowstorm happens, and he's kind of like, oh, well, you're not going anywhere. There's like a storm outside, so we're gonna, have fun with each other. I did like the character of Barrett. He was very sweet, and, kind of like, hey, I want you. It doesn't matter your age. I don't care how old you are. I'm attracted to you, And so this is the thing with like some women who are like, they're older and they, you know, not sure about dating a younger guy. If the younger guy is like, as long as he's mature, he's got his crap together, you know, why not? I mean, guys do it all the time, date younger women. So if you're good looking, you know, you're still good looking, you still got, you know, a body on you, oh, you know, younger guys will be interested in, why not, you know? Especially because during women, like when they get to like in their 50s, their sex drive usually kind of like revs up, where guys around that age, when they're around their 50s and 60s, their sex drive kind of tanks, you know. That's why they need the little blue pill to help them out. To where younger guys in their 20s and 30s, oh, they're raring to go. So, you know, this is why you'll see maybe like a 50-year-old woman get involved with a 30-year-old guy, because he's still, you know, ready to go. So yeah, this here was cute. You know, it was cute, but there was a little bit with the writing. Like, I would say the sex scenes were not as detailed as other sex scenes I've, you know, read. And, you know, the story was a little bit lacking, but it could be because it was a novella. Sometimes novellas don't really like hit their mark. So I'm not sure if I'm going to read another book by that author. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I thought I'd check it out because it was a holiday one. It was a novella and I wanted to see how it was. But yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. Be safe out there. And I will see you all on the next video. All right. Bye.